Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, and that means Tag Tuesday, when we're all tagged and tag each other. I thought I was going to shoulder it alone today, but I was actually tagged by Roz at Scallydandling About the Books. And it's a really neat tag. It's the Jolabokaflod PDX Tag. It was created by Margaret Pinard, and I guess is designed to commemorate a bookish ceremony in a land without trees where the books are the center of the ceremony. I like the props quite a bit, so I thought we'd do that today. Question number 1, the name. What is an unpronounceable or difficult to pronounce word you love? I'm going to try to feel my way through. My answer a lot is going to mystify a lot of you, but you never know. You can never tell what neurolinguistic etiology made some word difficult for somebody to pronounce somewhere along their lifespan, and they just never get out of the habit of doing it. And for me, it's appropriate to this title, to this tag. It's Reykjavik. It's Reykjavik. I love to say it, and I love the place, but if I am unguarded, if I am not mindful, I will say it wrong. Question number 2, the tradition. What is a new to you tradition or retelling of one that you love? I think probably holiday traditions are meant here, but when I heard the word retelling, I immediately thought of something more bookish than that. And since it's a book-centered holiday or occasion or ceremony, I thought I would do that instead, because it's remarkable. It's one of the only 2021 books that I've read so far, and it was truly wonderful. It's a debut novel called Alec, by William DeCanzio, and it's a novel told from the point of view of the young boy in E.M. Forster's novel Morris, which is about a homosexual love affair in which Forster kept away from being published until well after his death. And in the story, Morris falls in love with a beautiful young boy, and the novel Alec is the story of that boy. And in the tradition of Joe Baker's Longbourn, or novels like that, I loved it. Thought it was really, really good. Will almost certainly send me back to Morris in good time. Question number 3, the adaptation. What is an adaptation of something you love that was made even better or at least equal? And of course, the question here is apologizing where no offense is given, because if you watch this channel for any length of time, you know already where I stand with adaptations of literary works, whether it be for miniseries or prestige format TV shows or movies or whatever. And that's that the adaptation is almost always better than the book. And there are innumerable examples that shore up that point. Innumerable examples. To name just a few popular book-movie combos, there's Spartacus, there's The Hunt for Red October, there's Field of Dreams, there's The Book of Exodus, there's a Muppet Christmas Carol, to use a seasonal theme. And I know that cinema snobs, and more as the 21st century goes on, the only fans of cinema are actually cinema snobs. But cinema snobs will hear a list like that and say, oh, well, consider the source material. Of course, the adaptation is going to be better than such a crappy book. And that is a God of the Gaps argument, whether they realize it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not. Sooner or later, you will piece that back to a tiny little island of books that are actually better than any adaptation that has yet been made of them. Sooner or later, it will be a tiny little island. It'll be 5 or 6 books out of the thousands that have been adapted into screen in one way or another, either miniseries or TV or in movie theaters. Now, the rule, those are the exceptions. The rule is that the adaptation is always going to be better than the book. It's heretical for book people to hear that, or movie people to hear that, but nevertheless. The example that I wanted to use now, again, this is going to inflame both book snobs and movie snobs, but as I've said many times on this channel, your book snobbery is not my problem. It's actually your problem. And whether you know it or not, it's drastically limiting the enjoyment that you get from the plastic arts. I hate that limitation. I wish that I could convince you to change it, but it doesn't behoove me to change anything. And one way or another, one fairly recent adaptation that I wanted to mention right away is on Amazon Prime. It's the Alex Rider novels of Greg Horowitz, is that his name? I love them. I love the whole series. It's about a teenage spy agent of the British government, and the books have so much energy. And they were made into a movie starring Alex Pettyfer. Starring Alex Pettyfer right before he became what is colloquially known as a skanko. And of course, he will recover because he's in the British movie-going industry for the long haul. He will eventually be a stately middle-aged man. Then he will be an old man, and sooner or later, movie history will see Alex Pettyfer cast as Dumbledore in a remake of all the Harry Potter movies, as a sage, long-bearded, old, kindly gentleman. And it'll only be the most old and cynical Hollywood reporters that might approach that old and venerable, skinny, long fingernailed icon of the British stage and screen and ask him what he has tattooed directly underneath his belly button. It isn't something a saintly old man would have tattooed there. It's something a skankho would have tattooed there. But nevertheless, there was a movie starring a pre-spoilation Alex Pettyfer, and it was okay. It was about as good as any movie with Mickey Rourke in it could ever be. But this series takes it seriously. This series is actually really much better. Anyway, question number 4 is the mood. Sorry for the noise of the construction in the background. It is, after all, ongoing. It is ongoing. It is permanent. The construction that I have going on in a 3-foot by 3-foot square directly outside my front door is permanent. But we'll do our best to mitigate it. I'll try to keep the volume up. Question number 4, the mood. What is the coziest book you read or expect to read this winter? For me, it was a Regency romance. It was called The Christmas Bride by Anne Gracie, in which the main male character has an encounter on the road with would-be robbers, and shots are exchanged. He turns out okay, but it turns out that a young girl has accidentally been shot in the melee. And he's absolutely shattered by that, and takes her to his home in the bosom of his family, where she recovers and feels a family love and a family acceptance that she has never felt before. And that part of the book, that's a long part of the book, before the inevitable happens that the two of them fall in love. That's a large part of the book, and it's done just perfectly invitingly, perfectly warmly. So kudos to that, to The Christmas Bride, and also that would definitely count. Then question number 5, the discovery. Who is a new author you've discovered this year that you love? There are quite a few. For me, I'm going to pick Sue Rainsford here, who wrote a book called Follow Me to the Ground that I thought was really impressive, and that gave me all sorts of daydreams about what kinds of things she will do down the line, as debut novels always do. Then question number 6 is the setting. What is the deepest, darkest setting you've read about? Now, I know this is supposed to apply to winter and, shadowy pine trees and whatnot, but for me, I just heard that word darkest and ran with it. And this is yet another 2021 book. I think it's one of the only other 2021 books that I've actually read, and it's called The Precipice by Toby Ord. And as the title might suggest, it's a look at all the different ledges on which human survival teeters. And it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It reminded me actually of a video that I saw on YouTube by a science popularizing channel about a map of doom. If I remember, I will leave a link to that video down below, of all the various dooms, technological, biological, ecological, that face mankind, and how tenuous the odds are of survival of some of them, or especially all of them together, a combination of them together. Precipice was really, really good. I'll be amazed if it isn't on my science list for 2021. And when I get a copy, I might have read a UK copy. When I get a copy, I will show it to you again. Then question number 7 is Hot Cocoa. What is a book that comforted you during the long night, literal or metaphorical? And for me, for an odd reason, it's going to sound a little grim to those of you who are young, very young. Those of you who are very young are not going to believe, you never do believe, that you're ever going to get very old. And you also believe, encouraged liberally to do so by the 21st century, that everything that you're experiencing is the most important thing of its kind that has ever been experienced by anyone in the history of the world. Both of those things aren't true, and I'm not going to harp on it right now. But for me, The Dark Night of the Soul book is the diary of Samuel Pepys. He was a Restoration naval official, and he kept a private diary. Wrote all sorts of official documents, but he kept a private diary for 10 years. That is very private. It is an amazing split-brain performance, because he had a public persona. If the contents of his private diary were made known publicly in his lifetime, it would have completely ruined him. And he knew that. But he couldn't help himself, and his diary is him talking to himself about everything, without any airs or graces at all. So he would see the very hottest, most acclaimed new stage play, and to his friends, especially in front of his patron, he would be, intelligently discoursing about it. And then he'd get home and talk with his wife, or argue with her, or eat with her, or yell at the staff, or hit the staff about the head and shoulders, and then put on his nightshirt and go to bed. And right before that, sit at his little table and write a journal entry for the day. And in the journal entry, he would say, "I saw the most horrible piece of crap on stage today. It was just terrible." And that's what he meant. That's what he actually felt. And it's amazing to read. But on top of that, there's the drama. There were Pepys' family, his brothers, his father, his wife. He had troubles. There were storms of controversy. Little things, or at least to us they seem little. But in the diary, there's no avoiding the fact that they were huge to him at the time. In addition to which, he also celebrated every year the day that he was successfully cut for the stone. He had a kidney stone that was impacted and had to have it surgically removed. And we're not talking an operating table here. He stripped off all of his shirts so that his top was naked, stripped down his breeches until they were just over his bum, and then was hoisted into the air in a net. So he was swinging, back facing the ground, eyes and hands pointing to the sky. He was slung up in a net, and the surgeon worked underneath him with a knife that maybe had been cleaned, maybe had been sterilized over an open flame, but maybe not. The surgeon worked underneath him without anesthesia to find and cut out that impacted stone. So it's no surprise that Samuel Pepys considered it a miracle that he survived, and celebrated on the occasion of that survival every year for the rest of his life. Reading that and hearing him fuss about how much money it cost to lay in the wine and the food for his celebration, for me, has always served as a reminder that I'd like to think my own journals also help me to remember, which is this too shall pass. The thing that you're suffering through in the long night of the soul, the thing that I take up Pepys in order to read myself through, will pass. It will all pass. Sometimes it's a good issue, sometimes not. But one way or another, it helps. It helps me anyway, to steady the mind. For me, it's the Diary of Samuel Pepys. It's helped me on that kind of an occasion many times. And then question number 8, the final question, is the gift. What is an indie book you'll be giving this winter season? I realize that the question is designed as an open invitation for me to virtue signal, but I will not actually be giving books this season at all. I typically don't give seasonal presents anyway. Back before the pandemic, when going to the post office and mailing things off willy-nilly was an easy thing to do, something that didn't require me to think about whether or not I was going to get a potentially life-threatening illness, was just a normal part of the day. Back then, for all of those years before that pandemic, I made a point of giving book gifts to people all the time. Whenever I got anything that I thought they would in the least bit be interested in, I would just mail it off to them. It's only $3. You just mail it off to them and not even think about it. It wasn't any occasion for me. I would just do it. And that, over the years in my lifetime, has disposed me against making a big deal out of the gift-giving occasion of Christmas. I sometimes do it, but usually not. I have always liked to think, in the pre-pandemic years, I've always liked to think that any of the people that I would know well enough to give a present to at Christmas time would, with a moment's reflection, be able to say, well, yeah, Steve isn't shy about giving presents. So I guess I'm not really expecting one just for the occasion of Christmas. He'll send me something as a present when he wants to, and it'll always be good. It'll always be a bullseye. It'll just be when he wants to. It'll be all the time, and it won't just be for this one day. I have counted on people knowing that to stop me from getting a reputation as a bah humbug kind of Christmas denier or whatever. And I would have done the same thing this year. I would have spent all of 2020 mailing out books to all of you, but I haven't yet been able to justify it in my mind as in any way proportionate. That I send you a book that you might get to in 2027 in exchange for running the risk of infecting myself with a potentially deadly virus. Those two things just never seemed to line up for me at all in 2020. Maybe I just need to get over that. But one way or another, I won't be sending out books, indie or otherwise, for the holidays. And that is it. That is the Jolabokaflod PDX tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people. I have a few people that I want to tag. I don't know if they've been tagged yet, but we'll see. I want to tag Margaret Richardson Reads, of course, because I think he understands the idea that I'm talking about here. That gift giving should be just a thing that you do. It shouldn't be a thing you wait for and then do at the holidays. But one way or another, I tag him. I tag Peg at the History Shelf. I haven't tagged her in a while. I tag the Bookish Bryants. A Married Block of Trouble. But we'll see what they come up with. I tag another married block of another block of trouble. Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot. A terrific channel. I'll leave links to all of these down below. I tag Bill Rutenberg at the Rutenberg Library. Loves to do tags much as I do. As always in tags, I want to tag a newbie, someone who's brand new to BookTube, and in this case, it's Babbling Books. On her BookTube newbie tag, she mentions that she's mainly, one of the main reasons why she's doing her channel is because she is a film production person and is trying to keep her hand in, with opportunities in plague-ridden 2020 suddenly having shriveled to almost nothing. I predict, though, that if she embraces the community, she'll really find other reasons, lots of them, to do this. And, of course, Britta, my own Jolabokaflod. So I couldn't go tag without tagging her. So there you go. That is the Jolabokaflod tag, the Jolabokaflod PDX tag, to help you get into the spirit of the season. And I'm gonna wrap this up for this Tuesday, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.